Hello and welcome to SAP Oil and Gas Downstream Training Overview by Simha. This particular session intends to provide certain inputs on the SAP Oil and Gas Downstream solution. The inputs that are given in the video will provide some important information to the consultants who aspire to learn SAP Oil and Gas, in particular the downstream part of the SAP Oil and Gas. So let us first start with the explaining what is the oil and gas industry, the scope of this industry. The oil and gas industry among the global economies worldwide, if you see for each country, the oil and gas industry is a critical component. It is something that contributes to the GDP of the country. The oil and gas industry can be broadly divided into three main areas of activities. One is the exploration, extraction, refining, and distribution. So basically, as an industry, if you divide the overall work processes in the oil and gas industry, they can be divided into three main components: upstream, midstream, and downstream. So we're talking about the exploration and extraction of the crude oil, refining, and then ultimately distributing oil and gas end products to consumers. This particular sector is not only important for the transportation because the majority of the products that are made in the refining process are basically fuels which are essentially required for the transportation and energy needs, but also various byproducts will also be required in other industries like manufacturing and chemicals. With the significant investments and technological advancements all over the world, the industry continues to evolve regularly, addressing new challenges. Try to understand what is the scope of individual component in the oil and gas. Upstream part of the oil and gas industry. Here we talk about the exploration and production. It's a production activity, but you need to first explore the source of the crude oil and natural gas. So there are certain companies involved worldwide in various specific locations who will be on continuously trying to explore the sources of the crude oil, and they'll be able to set up the drilling wells, thereby extracting the hydrocarbons in the form of crude oil. The midstream is a part of oil industry where it will focus on the transportation, storage, and processing of the oil and gas. So this is basically involves taking the crude oil from the upstream companies and providing a kind of a transportation facility in the form of pipelines, tankers, and terminals, so that the initial product that is obtained in the upstream solution is delivered to the refineries, because refineries will require the crude oil. They are going to reprocess the crude oil for producing the products of the oil and gas. So this basically midstream functionality is in terms of transportation in bulk, the crude oil to the refineries. Downstream is basically a kind of again a production activity. They will obtain the crude oil from the upstream companies and then reprocess them in terms of getting the end products. So refineries will get the gasoline and diesel among the many petrochemical products, hydrocarbon products. But these two are the very important and crucial products that are obtained in the downstream. And the refinery companies also will set up the marketing activities and distributing the products like oil and gas products like petrol and diesel to the end consumers. So basically, in our particular training program for the SAP Oil and Gas, we are going to focus on the downstream part of the operation. A separate training can be also done on the upstream and midstream. The downstream sector is the final step. That means in the end-to-end process, you can say it is the last link where the refinery company is going to involve in terms of manufacturing the end process products, oil and gas. It is where the products are ultimately made to provide to the consumer. The downstream basically consists of companies that are engaged in the form of refineries, petrochemical plants, and the retail outlets. The outlets can be also owned by the refinery companies, or they can be dealer companies who will actually buy the petrol and diesel from the refinery companies and sell it to consumer through the retail outlets. Now, in the petroleum industry, in the downstream sector, oil refineries are the most crucial manufacturing sector. It is where the crude oil is processed into various end products, which includes gasoline, also called as petrol, diesel fuel, asphalt base, oils, fuel oils, heating oil. So there are large number of products which are manufactured in the refinery companies. Something like 150 plus products are manufactured. But among them, the gasoline and the diesel fuel are the most important crucial products. Now, usually an oil depot is located near the oil refinery to store the incoming crude oil. Basically, they require huge amount of crude oil to sustain the supply line, to supply the end products to consumer. So they have to plan in advance, purchase the huge quantity depending on the schedule of manufacturing. So they need some kind of a reservoir very near to the refineries where they will store the crude oil, and then refinery process will get us the end products. Oil refineries, depending on the investment, are large-scale facilities capable of processing hundreds of thousands of barrels of crude oil per day. That means depending on the capacity of production and investment, it can be a very huge investment in terms of setting up a complex manufacturing setup, which will be able to give us huge amount of oil per day. Due to their high capacity, many units operate continuously rather than in batches. So basically, refinery happens to be a continuous process where it will continue to refine the crude oil to sustain the requirements on the demand side to keep on supplying to the various locations, thereby always maintaining a steady or nearby steady state for the extended periods. Okay, so basically, they have to not only make the end products, but also maintain the enough stocks at their location so they can be in a position to supply depending on the demands to the outlets, retail outlets. Typical refinery will look something like this, which is a huge, technological investment, manufacturing investment. Depending on the size of the production per day, the refinery will change according to the manufacturing setup. Basically, refinery, technically speaking, is separating various products at different temperatures. Among the various products that are coming out of the refinery, 46% of the product will be gasoline, and diesel and other fuels will be 26%. Jet fuel is the third largest component. Apart from this, you also have the various other end products like lubricants, heavy fuel oil, and asphalt. But in majority, if you say, the main end products which we'll get from the refinery will be in bulk, large quantity will be gasoline, jet fuel, and diesel. Now, let us take a look at some of the biggest refineries worldwide. Among the global refinery companies, India has the biggest refinery in the world, located at the Jamnagar. Then you have one at Falguna Refining Complex, followed by Ulsan Refinery in South Korea. In South Korea, there are two actually. And then you have one in the United States. So I've just listed here 5 largest refineries worldwide as on today. Now, basically, downstream oil and gas companies are located in such a way they can cut down the time in terms of transportation of the oil and gas products to end consumers. Basically, their activities start from getting the crude oil from the upstream companies and take it to production phase, and then ultimately market and make sure the product will reach to the end point of sale, retail outlet. Basically, businesses involved here include oil refineries, petroleum product distributors. Basically, a supply chain can be set up by the oil refineries, distributors, petrochemical facilities, and also natural gas distributors, and ultimately retail outlets. Retail outlets happens to be the one where they sell on a daily basis huge amount of quantity, but also there are certain industries and manufacturing companies who need the petrol and diesel. They are also one of the type of the consumers who will buy the fuels from the downstream company. Basically, downstream is responsible for providing the end products to consumers. So when you're talking about SAP oil and gas solution, it has to provide a fitment in terms of making sure a supply chain will happen, consumer to cash sale kind of thing can happen in the system, where they are able to deliver the usable products to end users. So basically, companies that are involved here are engaged in marketing and making sure a physical distribution of the end products will happen to various types of consumers. Now, among the list of various companies that are involved in India oil and gas downstream companies, I've listed some of them, like Indian Oil Corporation, BP, Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited, Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited, Reliance. So these are some of the biggest oil and gas companies involved in the downstream activities. This is for the India. Now, worldwide, if we take the companies who are engaged in downstream, this is the partial list of major companies who are involved in the downstream activities. Now, also we have partial list of companies using SAP. SAP has developed a robust, completely integrated solution for oil and gas. But here I have taken some of the partial list of companies using SAP for oil and gas: ONGC, Bharat Oman Refinery Limited, India Oil Limited, and BPCL. Now let us talk about SAP as a solution, ERP solution for oil and gas solution for downstream. Basically, you get a one complete solution, which is the SAP ERP. It's an industry-specific solution for the oil and gas industry or the companies engaged in the industry. But within the solution, we have three main application components: upstream, midstream, and downstream. So basically, in this particular training program, we're trying to look at the downstream part of the SAP oil and gas. Basically, as an ERP, it is like a ready-to-use solution, which will help us to map existing business processes within the downstream into SAP system, thereby maintaining prerequisite master data, customize the basic functions and processes required in the downstream. It's basically a solution giving the end-to-end integration of various processes. Typically what you see in supply of products and services. Likewise here, we're talking about the supply of oil and gas products to consumers. Basically, it is a digital foundation that allows the oil and gas companies in the downstream to remain competitive as a ERP solution. It makes the business very efficient, well controlled, and then scalable to the day-to-day requirements of the oil and industry downstream. Now let us talk about what are the main application components within the SAP oil and gas downstream. These are the ones what we're going to learn during the training program. First comes the MCOE, abbreviation for the marketing, contracts, and order entry. So basically, it is a facility available within the oil and gas downstream, how to process the orders. Basically, order entry, quick order entry, to streamline the order processing much more quickly. There are certain enhancements given in the system which will make the order entry processing very faster, which is the requirement in the industry. Marketing, accounting, and pricing. Pricing is one of the most important basic function in the oil and gas. Essentially, we are using here sales and distribution basic function pricing with certain enhancements. There are different methods of pricing which are available, but at the core of pricing, we use the condition technique. If you have already worked in sales and distribution, you'll be able to understand very quickly the pricing calculations that can happen in the downstream order processing and also in billing. So that particular application component is called MEP, marketing, accounting, and pricing. Now, HPM happens to be a proprietary application within the oil and gas downstream. It's called hydrocarbon product management. Essentially, oil and gas products are basically hydrocarbon products. Now, inventory management delivery involves certain quantity, but these quantities will vary according to temperature and pressure. Especially in the case of oil and gas, temperature is one of the environmental factor, depending on which the volume will keep on changing. So that has to be taken into consideration in terms of the inventory management and sales order delivery billing. So using the HPM as the core proprietary application component, we'll be able to have the conversion programs, which will help us to convert into additional quantities and also adjust the quantity according to variations in the temperature. This is one of the most important requirements in the oil and gas. It is not like a regular process where we are expected to deliver the certain quantity of product to customer. From loading the product, whatever quantity, till reaches the customer, the quantity will remain the same. But here, while loading the product and while delivering, we're expecting to see some kind of variation in the quantity depending on the temperature and pressure. In the case of natural gas, pressure is the most important component apart from the temperature. But in the liquid fuels like oil and gas, basically petrol and diesel, we can see the effect of the temperature. Then comes the TDP, tariff, duties, and permits. This application component will help us to calculate excise duty, one of the most important part of the pricing calculation. Certain permits are given, exemptions are given. So those things can be included in the calculation to effectively provide the product to consumer as per the statutory requirements available in the country. So TDP is that part, which will help us to calculate the excise duties, tariff, and permits as per the statutory rules. Transportation and distribution. Here you're talking about the bulk distribution. That means from refinery, you're going to distribute the article to basically the, what you call, the terminals. The refineries are located at some part of the location in the country, but from there, the fuels have to be transported using the various bulk transportation methods, then ultimately reach the terminals. Terminals are like local depots, which are going to supply the product to the retailing consumers, basically through the retail outlets. So transportation, distribution, shipment processing with the enhancement will be used in the TD. Exchange is again an industry specific requirement where the different oil and gas companies will be able to have the exchange process, because sometimes a particular oil and gas company may not be able to have its own outlet in a particular location, but they can get the exchange from the other oil and gas companies. In terms of receipts and issues, an adjustment will happen. So this is called exchange process. Traders and scheduling workbench is a planning tool where it is one of the most important application component. We'll be working on it. And it is another very important proprietary application component. Bulk distribution replenishment planning. Actually, we are using consignment process in regular sales and distribution. The same process we are using in a different way in the form of bulk distribution and replenishment planning. Marketing and retailing network. It is one kind of reporting tool what we have in the SAP Oil and Gas, which will be supplemented with the BI solution if required. And then service station retailing is basically like the retail outlets are operating with the POS kind of mechanism where they sell, like companies owned retail outlets are going to involve in terms of sales, and they are going to capture the inventory data and the sales data in their solution, local POS kind of solution, which has to be mapped into SAP system for the reporting purpose, for posting the credit card details, and then other billing details can be posted into SAP. For that purpose, we have the SSR. So these are the overall various application components that will come across in the downstream solution. Now, like any other industry-specific solution, SAP Oil and Gas solution can be divided into two main applications. Classical ERP components, which are deployed here again. That means it will inherit all the standard application models what we have in a general ERP, like sales and distribution, materials management, financial accounting, controlling. These are integrated with the specific application components that we talked about just now. Just like any other industry-specific solution like retail, SAP Retail has all the classical components like sales and distribution, financial accounting, controlling, but they have the retail components. And likewise in utility, we have the SAP ISU CCS components, which will integrate with the classical models of the SAP. Likewise here, this solution has got everything, completely integrated environment using the classical ERP components. In addition, the other application components that we listed just now, and thereby you get a complete integrated solution for the industry. Now, basically, what is the scope of learning in the SAP IS downstream course? A functional consultant aspiring to work as a functional consultancy in the oil and gas projects in the downstream side. This course is designed for those consultants. It will help the consultants, participants to get the detailed information, application overview, and specific in detailed understanding about each and every application component, customization of all the components that we have listed, and also hands-on experience. That means we will take one model oil and gas company in the downstream and then start configuring on, complete end-to-end process from scratch, so that, while working in the system, we have the SAP IDAS solution for oil and gas, where there are two model companies, where they have the products and then certain important configuration data, application data, that will help us to understand to a large extent the master data and business process. But as a consultant, you should be able to set up the complete configuration from the scratch. Okay. So the basic course will aim to provide the approach in terms of working for a project, in terms of setting up all the configuration data from scratch, so that you can understand how it works in the actual project. Customize the downstream application for a model oil and gas company engaged in the downstream operations, so that as a consultant who is going to work later in the project will have the basic confidence in terms of understanding what are the various control data to be established in the configuration, and using that how to test the end-to-end process. Now we'll be able to carry out all the important business functions and end-to-end process based on our own configuration, so that we are in a position to say this is the scope of the project implementation. Having customized, we will carry out end-to-end process, so that we understand the overall end-to-end processes, including integration with the financial accounting and also the inventory management in MM. And also, SAP Oil and Gas possibly works with a huge number of interfaces. Although it is not possible to go through each and every interfaces, the most important interfaces which are expected to be there in the project, we can have a slight overview, so that we are prepared to understand what are these actually. Now, let us take a look at the SAP IS downstream application part. From the SAP IS solution, I have taken a screenshot where specifically we are trying to list out the oil and gas downstream applications, what you can see here, like the HPM, TDP, exchange, transportation and distribution, MAP. All these are the individual components which you need to understand what are the control data, how to customize them, and how they will integrate with the overall end-to-end process. That means right from sales order to billing, account determination and posting, how all these are going to work. So that is what is the scope of the learning. Let's go to individual components in briefly. The marketing, contracts and order entry, MCOE short, it is basically order entry component. That means as a sales and distribution component consultant, you may be aware of how you process the sales orders. Okay. So here also you're going to learn how to process the sales orders with certain specific customizations and enhancements available for the order entry, quick order entry, and also contract processing. So contract processing, sales order processing are the most important focus in the MCOE. Now here, contract processing has been enhanced with the following functions. Basically in the order processing and contract processing, I've got some enhancements here. Automatic determination of the organizational data. Now, since you need to prepare the sales order on a regular basis, daily basis, to cut down the time in taking the process, because these are all like repetitive sales orders, almost done on everyday basis. So instead of entering each and every data manually, we can have the data copied quickly from the last order in terms of the copy as it is or copy only the quantities. So there's a kind of a flexibility. So this will help us to very quickly process the sales orders. Now, automatic determination of delivery plant also will happen. In the standard SAP, the automatic determination of the delivery plant will happen based on the customer material info record or customer record or the material master. But here, as a special case, you'll be able to set up determination from the 5 preferred delivery plants. Okay, that means it will try to find out which particular terminal is having the sufficient quantity to meet the complete quantity of the order. So it can do sequentially search based on certain criteria and then select the most preferred delivery plant for the delivery. Then we are going to create a quantity contract, and basically based on quantity contract, we're going to create the delivery. Okay, but this quantity contract will be able to be created with the multiple shipped parties, which is another important enhancement here. That means at the header level, we'll be able to have multiple shipped parties so that, you know, when you create the release orders, you'll be able to do it for the specific shipped party. And also there are certain restrictions here, okay, in terms of the quantity, in terms of the date, in terms of the conditions. There are certain, you know, restrictions are there. They can be configured so that you make sure we cannot keep on copying the contract data into sales order. Also, we can set up the automatic redetermination of the item category during the order entry. Now comes the continuation of the marketing and contracts order entry. The scope of configuration is highlighted here, like alternate supplying plant. Using certain criteria, we'll be able to set up the automatic determination of the plants using criteria, default item category configuration, determination. Then defines ship to party, sold to party check on the sales organization level, contract restrictions, and default partner function. Default partner function for ship to party is enhancement here. So instead of using asset, we have something else. We will see that. So we'll be able to maintain multiple ship to parties at the header level in the contract. Now here, the particular screenshot will tell us in detail what are the various functionalities in MCOE. Basically, sales order entry, fast order entry, defaulting sales area, and then automatic determination of supply plant, automatic redetermination of the item category, multiple ship to parties in the contracts that I happen to mention, and Some information fields are available in the delivery documents, which are available here. Call-off restrictions, how they will work when you release the contract into sales orders. Okay. So customer master enhancements are also a part of the NCOD. This is basically a regular sales order entry in sales and distribution module enhanced to meet the oil and gas downstream. Now comes the marketing, accounting, pricing. Basically, pricing a basic function used in the SAP sales and distribution. We are using the complete components of the condition technique here also for sales and distribution. But there are different methods by which you can do pricing calculation. Basically like contract pricing, cumulative contract call-off pricing, using the customer price list, then default pricing dates. Also we have here head office and branch level pricing, location flexible pricing using the DRC models, time pricing, date and time pricing, formula and average pricing. So a very exhaustive list of different methods of calculations are possible. And for each one of them, you have to enhance the condition types which is used in the calculation. SAP will give some standard procedures, but you can develop a procedure on our own, meeting the specific country requirements, because you need to take into consideration of the starting price, then add the excise duty and other terms and conditions. But apart from that, you can control how effectively pricing will happen depending on the particular method of pricing. It's a global requirement, so different countries may need different solution, but you will be in a position to configure them as per the list what we have provided. Although we are not going in detail for each one of them, but during training program, we'll be able to see how to customize them and how to control the pricing calculation. So condition type has got some enhancements here, which are going to be used as part of the condition technique. This is a place where you are going to configure MAP, accounting and pricing, wide area pricing zone, and then metropolitan indicator, differential reference code. This will be going to sit in the customer master. So in detail, all these parts can be customized according to pricing requirement. Now comes the hydrocarbon product management. As I said before, this is a proprietary application component, HPM, liquid and gaseous hydrocarbon product management. Basically in oil and gas industry, we deal with oil, fuel oil, and the natural gas. But unlike the other products, here the quantity of the fuels are expected to vary according to temperature, the ambient temperature. So when you're going to deliver, you are delivering certain quantity, but when it reaches the consumer, what is the quantity? So there's expected to be variation. How to account it? So a automatic quantity conversion will happen. This quantity conversion has to be reliable because this has to be indicated to the consumers in their invoice and also in inventory management. So you need to have a kind of proven interface. So there are worldwide solutions available which will take care of the quantity conversion. These can be used in the form of interfaces. So when you do the order processing and when you do delivery processing at the time of goods issue, the quantity as per the order is copied, but actual quantity, how much you're delivering, will be calculated based on the ambient temperature to test temperature. We have to calculate at a standard temperature, which is normally 15 degrees centigrade or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So basically this conversion calculation will happen in the external solution and it will supply the quantity information to delivery processing. Also, we are expected to provide information, the quantity what you're issuing in different units of measurement. So not only it will do the adjustment in terms of quantity calculation as per the variations in the temperature, but also different units of measurement can be given in the delivery processing for the customer benefit, so that this is also part of the QCI, basically conversion interface. The oil and gas quantity calculator will convert volumes, masses, and energy at ambient conditions. That means the actual condition at the time of loading or delivery, or when you're doing the goods visit issue. They are happening at the actual ambient condition, but they have to be adjusted to a kind of a standard temperature, which is normally worldwide 15 degrees centigrade or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So this calculation has to happen as per the industry practice, and the calculation has to be done by a company which can be authentic in terms of calculation. So you make use of the QCI, basically quantity conversion interface. So here you can see the part of the IMG configuration where you can have a look about the quantity conversion interface. So it is not only limited to the delivery part. Also, when you receive the oil from the companies, goods visit will happen. That time also the conversion has to happen. Also, when you're doing the inventory management, because we have a certain quantity of oil stored in the particular depot, but it is expected to vary. So what is the variation that is happening, that has to be recorded and converted to from the ambient temperature to standard temperature. So loss and gain can be calculated in the overall process. So this is also one of the important area, not only in delivery processing, but also in terms of inventory management. The HPM component is very much required. So here I'm concluding with the part 1. In part 2, we'll take other application components in detail. I didn't want to club all of them into one module, video module. Rather, we'll have two so that you can get focused. So we'll take it forward in the second part of our video. Thank you for watching.